When my daughter-in-law looked me straight in the eyes and said, "Ellie, it's time for you to find your own place and move out," I didn't cry. I didn't argue or beg. I just smiled the softest, calmest smile I could find inside me and whispered, "I understand, Sarah. If that's what you need, I'll go." That smile was all I could give her in that moment. It hid a lifetime of pain, a secret I had carried alone for 15 long years, a secret so heavy it felt like a stone pressing on my chest every single day. I had stayed silent to protect my family, thinking it was the kind thing to do, but in the end, that silence meant I paid the price all by myself. No one to share the burden, no one to hold my hand through the quiet nights of wondering and worrying. I remember every detail of that evening so clearly. We were standing in the kitchen, the room that had always been the heart of this house. I had cooked thousands of meals there, from simple breakfasts to holiday feasts. The sun was setting slowly outside the window, casting a warm orange glow across the counters before it faded into soft gray shadows. Sarah stood across from me at the table, her arms crossed gently over her chest, her face looking more tired than angry. The children, my dear grandchildren Jack and Lily, were upstairs in their rooms, finishing homework or playing quietly. Their faint voices drifted down the stairs now and then. My son Michael wasn't home yet. He was still at work, dealing with his busy day. The house felt unusually still that evening, like it was holding its breath, waiting for something important to happen. I felt my heart twist deep inside, a sharp but quiet ache that made breathing a little harder. But I kept my voice steady and my eyes soft. I had practiced hiding my feelings for many years by then. "Are you sure about this?" I asked her gently, without any pressure. She nodded slowly, avoiding my gaze for a moment. "It's just, we need some space now. The kids are getting older and things have changed over the years." Her words were polite and careful, but they cut straight into my heart like a dull knife. I nodded back, keeping that small smile on my face. "All right, dear, I'll start looking for a place tomorrow." Inside, a flood of memories rushed over me like a warm but sad wave. Memories of the day I first moved into this house, full of hope and gratitude. Memories of tiny hands reaching up for hugs, of laughter echoing around the dinner table, of holidays filled with twinkling lights and joyful songs. And running through all those beautiful pictures was the dark shadow of what I knew, the painful truth about Sarah, about a man named David, and about my precious grandson, Jack. That night, after our talk, I went to my room and sat on the edge of the bed. I pulled out an old suitcase from the closet and began packing a few clothes and personal things. Rain started to fall softly outside, tapping against the window like gentle fingers trying to comfort me. It reminded me of so many rainy days spent in this house, baking with the kids or reading stories while thunder rumbled far away. For the first time in a long while, I let quiet tears fall down my cheeks. They were private tears. No one heard them, no one saw, no one ever had through all the years. I think it's time now to go back and tell you how it all really started, so you can understand why I smiled that day instead of letting the pain show. My name is Eleanor, but from the very day I was born, everyone has called me Ellie. I grew up in a quiet, small town, the kind where neighbors wave from their front porches and bring over food when someone is sick or sad. My husband Tom and I built a simple, happy life there. He worked hard at the local mill every day, coming home with tired but loving smiles and little stories about his coworkers. I stayed home, keeping our house warm and cozy. I baked apple pies from scratch, using apples from our own tree in the backyard. I tended the flower garden in summer, watching roses and daisies bloom. And most of all, I raised our only child, our only son, Michael. Michael was the light of our lives from the start. He took his first steps in our living room, toddling toward Tom with a big grin. We watched him grow year by year into a kind, responsible man, tall like his father, with the same warm brown eyes and gentle heart. Tom and I often talked about the future, dreaming of grandchildren running around our yard, of big family gatherings with lots of food and stories. But life has its own plans sometimes, plans that don't match our dreams. Tom passed away suddenly one cold winter morning. It was a heart attack, quick and unexpected. He was gone before I could even say a proper goodbye. I was 62 years old then, left alone in our little house filled with photographs on the walls and quiet echoes in every room. The days were long, but the nights were harder, lying in a bed that felt much too big without him beside me. My son and Sarah didn't let me stay alone for too long. One day, Michael called and said, "Mom, please come live with us. Our house is big. There's plenty of room. The kids love you so much, and we'd feel better knowing you're close." Sarah got on the phone too and added, "Yes, Ellie, please. It would mean the world to us." I thought about it for a few days. I didn't want to be a burden on them, but the idea of being near family, of hearing children's voices again, warmed my heart, so I agreed. I packed my belongings carefully, my clothes, my favorite old teapot, boxes of photo albums full of memories, and my recipe book with Tom's handwritten notes in the margins. The day I arrived at their house, the children came running to the door with excited shouts. Jack was 5 years old then, a little bundle of pure energy with bright blue eyes that sparkled and a never-ending stream of questions. "Grandma Ellie, will you read me stories every night? Will you make cookies with me?" he asked, tugging at my hand eagerly. Lily was just 3, a bit shy at first, hiding behind her mother's legs with her curly hair bouncing as she peeked out. But it didn't take long before she was climbing into my lap, giggling as I tickled her gently and made funny faces. Sarah was warm and welcoming in those early months. She had a good job in an office in the city, coming home each evening with stories about her day and her coworkers. Michael had to travel sometimes for work, but when he was home, he always made sure I felt truly part of everything. "You're such a blessing to us, Mom," he'd say, giving me big hugs. I helped out wherever I could, cooking hearty dinners, picking the kids up from preschool or daycare, folding their tiny clothes that still smelled like sweet baby powder. The house quickly came alive with new daily rhythms that I loved. Mornings were filled with sleepy breakfast chatter around the table, pancakes and fresh fruit. Afternoons meant playtime in the big backyard, pushing swings or chasing bubbles. Evenings brought baths with lots of splashes, then bedtime stories read in soft voices. On weekends, I baked cookies or cakes, and the wonderful smells would draw everyone into the kitchen with smiles. Jack loved standing on a stool to help mix the dough, getting flour all over his nose and cheeks. Lily would draw colorful pictures for me, simple stick figures of our whole family holding hands under a big yellow sun. It truly felt like a second chance at happiness for me. My heart, so broken after losing Tom, started to mend in small, quiet ways. I would thank God every night in my prayers for this family, for the noise of little feet running around, for the love that filled all the empty spaces inside me once again. But then, on one ordinary, quiet afternoon, about a year after I had moved in, something happened that changed everything in my life forever. I was upstairs in Michael and Sarah's bedroom, putting away a basket of clean laundry, as I often did to help out. The dresser drawer was already slightly open, and as I pushed in a neat stack of sweaters, a plain white envelope slid out and fell softly to the floor. It wasn't sealed all the way, and the flap was lifted just enough that a few words caught my eye as it landed. I know now that I shouldn't have looked inside, But in that moment, a mix of curiosity and quiet concern pulled me. I picked it up carefully, telling myself I would just glance quickly to see if it was something important that needed attention. It was a handwritten letter from a man named David. The words were filled with deep longing and emotion. I still think about our time together every single day. Being with you before you met and married Michael was the happiest part of my life. I'm so sorry for how things ended with us. Can we please talk again? I miss you more than words can say. Always, D. My hands started to tremble as I read it once, and then a second time to be sure. My mind raced with questions. Who was this David? Was this letter from long ago, before she ever met my son? An old love from her past? Or was it something more recent?
Time moved forward like it always does, slow and steady, day by day, season by season. The children grew taller, little by little, inch by inch, year by year. Jack started kindergarten and then elementary school, coming home each afternoon with colorful drawings, new stories about friends, and exciting things he learned. Lily followed a couple years later, her little backpack looking almost as big as she was, swinging as she walked. I was there for every milestone, helping with simple homework, packing healthy lunches with notes inside, cheering loudly at school plays and events. The house filled with wonderful new sounds that made my heart happy. Soccer practices and games in the backyard with balls flying everywhere. Piano lessons for Lily, the notes echoing softly through the living room as she practiced her scales. Birthday parties with bright balloons, cakes with candles, and children laughing as they played games. I loved being part of every bit of it. Baking became my special way of showing love. Warm, fresh bread on Sunday mornings, chocolate chip cookies ready when they came home from school. The children would run to me with open arms and big hugs, calling, "Grandma Ellie," in excited voices, and my heart would swell with joy. Sarah was very busy with her job, earning promotions that meant longer hours and more responsibility. Michael had to travel even more for work as his career grew. I didn't mind stepping in to help. It made me feel needed and useful, like I truly belonged. "You're so wonderful with the kids, Ellie," Sarah would say with a quick smile as she hurried out the door in the morning. Michael always thanked me warmly, hugging me goodnight and saying, "We really couldn't do all this without you, Mom. You're our rock." But underneath all the daily happiness and busyness, small changes started to appear over time. They were little things at first, easy to brush aside or explain away. Sarah began coming home later on some evenings. "Traffic was terrible today," she'd say with a tired sigh, or "an important meeting ran way over time." She looked exhausted most days, but sometimes there was a different lightness in her step when she walked in, or she would glance quickly at her phone and her lips would curve into a small, private smile before she put it away. I noticed these small moments, but I told myself not to worry and said nothing. One evening, when Michael was away on one of his business trips and the kids were fast asleep upstairs, I was in the laundry room folding a big pile of clean clothes. I checked the pockets of Sarah's winter coat, an old habit from raising Michael, always finding lost crayons, small rocks, or toys. In one deep pocket was a folded piece of paper, a printed-out email. My heart skipped as I unfolded it. It was from David again. The message read, "Thank you so much for meeting me for coffee today. It felt just like old times being with you. I hope we can do it again very soon. I'm thinking of you always." My breath caught in my throat. So the first letter wasn't something old and forgotten. It was part of something ongoing. They were actually meeting in person. My mind filled with new questions. How long had this been going on? How often did they see each other? Did she still have strong feelings for this man? I stood there in the laundry room for a long time, holding that paper, feeling a mix of sadness and fear. Part of me wanted to go upstairs right then and confront Sarah gently. Another part wanted to wait until Michael came home and show him everything. But then I thought about the children sleeping peacefully in their beds upstairs, dreaming sweet dreams. What if speaking up broke the family apart? What if it led to fights or even divorce? What if Michael left and the kids lost their stable home? Those thoughts stopped me cold. I folded the email carefully, put it back in the pocket exactly as I found it, and finished folding the laundry with heavy hands and a heavier heart. That night, sleep didn't come easily. The secret felt even heavier now, like someone had added another large stone on top of the first one I was already carrying. After that discovery, I started paying closer attention, even though I didn't want to. I noticed more small things. Sarah began taking long drives on weekends just to clear my head and relax. She bought new clothes more often, prettier dresses, nicer shoes than she usually wore for work. One day, when I was helping clean out her car before a trip, I found a parking receipt tucked in the side door pocket. It was from a small cafe in a town about 2 hours away, the very same town that was listed as the return address on that very first letter I found. Each new discovery hurt my heart a little more than the last. Each time, I faced the same difficult choice. Should I speak up or stay silent? And each time, I chose silence. I told myself it was for the best, that maybe the whole thing would end naturally. Maybe Sarah would realize how good her life was and choose her family fully. But keeping everything inside started to cost me in quiet ways. I felt more distant from everyone, like I was watching family life through a foggy window instead of being fully part of it. Nights became longer and lonelier, with thoughts circling the same worries over and over. Sarah's way of treating me changed slowly, too. It was subtle at first, nothing big. "Ellie, you really don't have to cook dinner every single night," she'd say with a small sigh, or, "The kids are getting old enough now to pack their own school bags." The words were polite, but there was a slight edge to them sometimes, like she wanted more space from my help and presence. I always smiled and stepped back right away. "Of course, dear, whatever makes things easier for you." But inside, those words stung deeply. I had moved here to be close family, to help and share the load. Now, bit by bit, I felt like I was becoming more of a guest, or worse, like I was in the way. Michael noticed the changes sometimes too. "You've been a bit quiet lately, Mom," he'd say over morning coffee. "Is everything all right between you and Sarah?" I always gave the same calm answer. "Everything's fine, son. She's just really stressed and tired from work these days." It was another small lie added to the big secret I was keeping. The grandchildren remained my brightest light through everything. Jack loved building elaborate blanket forts in the living room with sheets and chairs. He'd invite me inside for secret meetings where we'd whisper made-up stories and share hidden snacks. Lily adored books more than anything. We'd curl up together on the big couch, her head resting on my shoulder, as I read stories about faraway adventures, brave heroes, and magical places. Those sweet moments with the kids kept me going day after day. For their sake, I stayed strong on the outside. For them, I kept my silence. But deep down inside, a new and bigger worry started to grow over the years. I began thinking more about dates and timelines from the past. Jack's birth date, exactly 9 months after Michael and Sarah's wedding day, which had been a quick but happy ceremony. Jack's bright blue eyes that were so different from Michael's warm brown ones or my own. I remember seeing a photo once on Sarah's phone, left open by accident, A picture of a man with those same striking bright blue eyes. It had to be David. Every time the thought came, I pushed it away hard. It was too terrible to consider seriously, too big and painful. Staying silent felt safer, even as the worry ate at me more and more each day. The years passed in this quiet way. Holidays came and went with their special joy, big Thanksgivings with roasted turkey and everyone giving thanks around the table, Christmases with twinkling lights, wrapped gifts and carols. We took family photos every year, all smiling with arms around each other, but I carried the growing weight alone, smiling through every picture. Small arguments began to happen more often between Sarah and Michael. They were usually quiet about everyday things, time spent away, money matters, her coming home late. One summer, we all took a family vacation to a cozy cabin by a beautiful lake. For those few days, it felt like the old happy times again, splashing and swimming in the cool water, roasting marshmallows over a crackling fire at night, telling stories under the stars. Sarah laughed freely, Michael held her hand as they walked. I sat watching and thought maybe everything was healing on its own. But on the long drive home, Sarah's phone rang. She stepped out of the car at a rest stop to take the call, speaking in a low voice. When she came back, I saw her face soften in a way she hadn't for Michael in many months, a soft, private smile. The small cracks in our family were growing slowly but surely, and my long silence was allowing them to spread wider.
That is how long the secret had lived inside me, growing quietly, like a shadow that followed every footstep I took in that house. 15 years of folding laundry and finding small clues I pretended not to see. 15 years of smiling at family dinners while my heart carried a weight no one else could feel. 15 years of choosing silence because I believed love sometimes meant protecting people from the truth. And then, on one ordinary spring afternoon, everything broke open. Michael was away on another business trip, one of those week-long journeys that had become normal over the years. The grandchildren, Jack, now almost 16, Lily, 14, were at school. Sarah had called in sick that morning. Her voice had sounded tired on the phone when she spoke to her manager, and she had stayed upstairs most of the day with the bedroom door closed. I didn't think much of it at first. Everyone has days when the world feels too heavy to face. I was downstairs in the kitchen doing what I had always done, making soup. The same simple vegetable soup I had made hundreds of times. Carrots, potatoes, onions, a little celery, fresh thyme from the small herb garden I still kept by the back door. The kitchen smelled warm and familiar. Rain had started outside, soft at first, tapping gently against the windows like someone asking to come in. I stirred slowly, watching the steam rise in lazy curls, thinking about nothing and everything at once. That was when I heard her voice. Her bedroom door must have been open just a crack because the words drifted down the hallway and staircase clearly enough for me to catch every one. "I can't keep doing this, David," she whispered, but her whisper carried. "I can't keep lying. Michael still doesn't know anything, and I feel awful every single day I wake up in this house." There was a long pause. I stood frozen with the wooden spoon in my hand, not moving, not breathing. Then she said the words that stopped my heart completely. "Our son, Jack, looks more and more like you every year now. Those blue eyes, that smile, I see it clearer all the time, and it scares me so much." "Our son?" The spoon slipped from my fingers and clattered loudly against the side of the pot, splashing soup onto the stove. I didn't even flinch. I couldn't move. Jack wasn't Michael's son. In that single moment,
Every piece I had refused to put together for 15 years snapped into place with terrible, perfect clarity. Sarah and David had been together right before she met my son. They had ended things, or so she thought. One last night together, one moment of weakness. Jack was born exactly 9 months after Michael and Sarah's wedding day. I had done the math 1,000 times in my head and always pushed it away. I had noticed Jack's bright blue eyes from the day he was born, eyes that didn't match Michael's warm brown, didn't match mine, didn't match anyone in our family. I had seen the photograph once on Sarah's phone, left open by accident. A man with those same striking blue eyes smiling at the camera. David. I had known. Deep down, I had known for years. But knowing and hearing it spoken aloud were two different things. Sarah appeared at the bottom of the stairs a minute later. She was still in her robe, hair unbrushed, face pale. She saw me standing there, one hand gripping the counter, the other pressed to my chest. "Ellie?" Her voice was small, frightened. "Were you listening?" There was no point lying anymore. The truth was finally in the room with us, breathing the same air. I nodded slowly. I heard enough. She walked toward me like someone moving through water, slow and heavy. When she reached the kitchen table, her legs seemed to give out, and she sank into a chair. "How long?" she whispered. "How long have you known?" I pulled out the chair across from her and sat down. My hands were shaking, but my voice stayed calm. It had practiced staying calm for 15 years. "About David, 15 years," I said quietly. The first letter I found the year after I moved in, then the emails, the parking receipts from that little cafe 2 towns over, the photograph on your phone that time you left it on the counter. I never meant to snoop. Things just appeared, and every time I put them back and said nothing. Her eyes filled with tears. She covered her mouth with both hands, trying to hold in a sob. "I thought it was over," she said, voice breaking. "Before Michael, I ended things with David. I loved Michael. I still love Michael. But then David reached out again years later, and old feelings. I was weak, Ellie. I was so weak." I reached across the table and gently placed her hand over hers. Not because I wasn't hurt, my heart was breaking in that moment, but because I understood weakness. I had lived with my own kind for 15 years. "And Jack?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She closed her eyes. Tears slid down her cheeks. "It was one time, one night right before I ended things with David for good. I didn't know I was pregnant until after Michael and I were married. I prayed every single day that he was Michael's. I wanted him to be Michael's. But when Jack was born and I saw those blue eyes, I knew. I've known every day since." The rain was heavier now, drumming against the windows. The soup kept simmering on the stove, filling the kitchen with its comforting smell, but neither of us moved to turn it down. "Convinced myself the past could stay buried," she continued, voice trembling. "That love and time would make it true. Michael has been Jack's father in every way that matters. Every bedtime story, every school play, every hug. He's the one who taught him to ride a bike, who stayed up all night when he had fever. But every time Jack smiles a certain way or laughs that little laugh, I see David, and it terrifies me that one day Michael will see it too." I sat there, listening, feeling the full weight of 15 years settle between us on that small kitchen table. "I never told Michael about any of it," I said softly. "Not the letters, not the meetings, not my suspicions about Jack. I thought if I stayed quiet, I could keep the family together. I thought silence was love." She looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw the guilt in her eyes turn into something else, recognition. "You carried this alone?" she asked. "All these years?" I nodded. "Every day." She started crying harder, but this time it wasn't just for herself. She reached for my hand and held it tightly. "I'm so sorry, Ellie. I'm sorry I put this on you. I'm sorry I made you carry my mistake." We sat there for a long time, two women bound by the same terrible secret, one who had created it, one who had protected it. The rain kept falling, the soup kept simmering, and for the first time in 15 years, I was not carrying the burden completely alone. Eventually, when the tears slowed, Sarah looked at me with fear in her eyes. "Please," she whispered, "please don't tell Michael. It would destroy him. It would destroy everything we've built." I looked at her for a long moment. I thought of my son, kind, trusting, the boy who had lost his father too young and had built his whole world around this family. I thought of Jack, growing into a young man who adored the only father he had ever known. I thought of Lily, who deserved a home filled with peace. And I thought of myself, 77 years old, tired of silence. "I won't tell him," I said finally. "Not yet. But Sarah, this can't stay buried forever. Secrets this big have a way of coming out, and when they do, they hurt more because of the years they were hidden." She nodded, understanding. We sat a little longer, listening to the rain soften outside. The soup had started to stick to the bottom of the pot. I could smell it, but neither of us moved. Eventually, Sarah spoke again, her voice small. "Do you hate me?" Just 2 nights after that rainy afternoon conversation, the full storm of truth broke over our family. Michael came home early and unexpectedly from his business trip, surprising all of us. He walked through the door to find Sarah sitting at the kitchen table with red eyes from crying, and me making fresh tea to try and comfort her. The air in the room felt thick and heavy with everything unspoken. "What's going on here?" he asked quietly, setting down his travel bag and looking concerned. We all moved to sit around the big kitchen table, the same table where we had shared thousands of happy meals, celebrations, and ordinary days over the years. Sarah started talking first, her voice shaking the whole time. I held her hand gently under the table when the words became too hard for her. She told him everything, step by step. Her past relationship with David before meeting Michael, the one week night just before ending it, the ongoing emotional contact over the years with meetings and messages, and finally, the hardest part, the truth that Jack was David's biological son. When she reached the words, "Jack is David's son, biologically, not yours," Michael's face went completely still and pale. He turned his head slowly to look at me. "Mom, did you know any of this? Any part of it?" Tears came to my eyes then, after holding them back for so many years. "Some of it, son," I admitted in a soft, trembling voice. "I found letters and other things by accident over the years. I suspected the truth about Jack for a long time, but always pushed it away. I stayed completely silent because I thought telling you would break your heart even worse than keeping quiet." Michael stood up slowly without saying a single word. He grabbed his raincoat from the hook by the door and walked out into the pouring rain outside. The door closed quietly behind him. We didn't see him again for several long hours. Sarah cried and cried until she seemed to have no tears left. I stayed with her the whole time, making more cups of tea, speaking gentle and comforting words when I could find them. In that strange and painful moment, we were almost allies. We both loved the same man deeply and had hurt him in our different ways. Michael finally returned very late that night, completely soaked from the rain, his eyes red and tired. He didn't shout or raise his voice in anger. He just looked at both of us for a long moment and said calmly, "I need some time alone to think about all this." Then he went to the guest bedroom and closed the door softly. The weeks that followed were the darkest and most difficult I have ever known in my life. The whole house felt cold and quiet, even when the heat was turned up high. Michael spoke very little to anyone, sleeping in the separate guest room. Sarah started going to counseling sessions alone at first, coming home emotionally drained and quiet. The children could sense the heavy sadness hanging in the air. Jack became much quieter than usual and spent more time alone. Lily clung to me tighter than ever with worried looks. "Why is everyone so sad these days, Grandma?" asked me one night with big eyes. I hugged her close and said, "Sometimes grown-ups have really hard days and big worries, sweetie, but we all love you and Jack more than anything." During those hard weeks, I offered several times to pack up and leave the house to give them space. "Maybe it really is time for me to find my own place," I said gently to Michael one day, but he shook his head firmly. "No, Mom, please stay. We still need you here." Very slowly, over many weeks and small steps, a little light began to return to our home. One quiet evening, Michael asked me to come sit with him on the back porch after the kids were in bed. The rain had finally stopped days earlier, and stars were peeking out in the night sky. "How in the world did you carry this heavy secret alone for so many years?" he asked me, his voice soft and full of pain. "For you, son," I replied honestly, "and for Jack and Lily. I was so scared that if I spoke the truth, it would take our whole family away from me forever." He reached over and hugged me tightly then, the same way he used to when he was a little boy needing comfort. "It hurts a lot, Mom, all of it, but I wish you had trusted me enough to share the burden sooner." "I know that now," I whispered back, tears in my eyes again. "I'm truly sorry." Michael quietly arranged for a DNA test soon after, not because he wanted to change how he felt about Jack, but because he needed clear facts to process everything. The results came back confirming what we already knew deep down. The very next weekend, Michael took Jack on a special fishing trip, just the two of them, by the lake. When they came home, Jack was smiling and happy. Later, Michael told me privately what he had said to Jack out there. "You are my son, buddy, now and forever. Nothing in the whole world will ever change that." Sarah made a firm decision and cut off all contact with David completely, blocking his numbers, deleting old messages, closing that chapter. Then she and Michael started going to counseling sessions together every week. They talked for long hours about the hurt, about betrayal and trust, about forgiveness, and how to rebuild step by step. One afternoon, Sarah came to me alone in the garden when I was tending flowers. "Ellie, I'm so deeply sorry," she said, with sincere eyes full of tears. I took both her hands in mine and said, "I forgive you completely, dear. We all make big mistakes in life. What really matters is what we choose to do next." And slowly, day by day, we all did choose next. Small, positive steps forward, cooking and eating family dinners together again, hearing laughter return bit by bit in conversations, and having open and honest talks instead of heavy silence. Michael and Sarah both asked me to stay in the house permanently. "This is your home too, Mom, always," Michael said firmly. Sarah nodded beside him. "We truly need you here." Healing was not quick or easy by any means. There were still many hard days filled with tears, difficult questions, and painful memories, but our love for each other held us together through it all, and it grew stronger for having been tested so deeply. Many years have now passed since that rainy spring when the full truth came out and changed everything. Looking back from where we are today, I can clearly see how far we have all come, and how deep pain can sometimes lead to even deeper peace and understanding if we choose to work through it together. Michael and Sarah decided to renew their wedding vows one beautiful, quiet afternoon right in our own backyard. It was a small, private ceremony, just our family, the kids, and a few very close friends. Bright flowers were blooming all around us in the garden I had tended for years. The sun was warm and gentle overhead. Jack, now a tall and confident teenager, stood proudly right beside Michael, his true dad in heart, choice, and every way that matters most. Lily, growing into a kind and thoughtful young woman, danced around us happily in a light sundress, scattering soft flower petals with smiles. I stood watching the whole ceremony with tears in my eyes, but this time they were tears of pure joy and relief. The family that had come so close to breaking apart had mended itself stronger than ever before. I still live happily in the same house to this day. My cozy room is just as it has always been, with my old framed photographs on the walls and my favorite quilt on the bed. Sunday mornings still smell wonderfully of fresh baked bread and coffee. The grandchildren, now young adults with their own busy lives, come home to visit often, filling the rooms with new stories about college classes, first jobs, dreams for the future, and lots of laughter. Jack learned the full truth about his biology when he was old enough and ready to hear it. We shared it gently and with much love. One day, not long after, he walked up to Michael and said with strong emotion, "You're my dad, always and forever." He gave him a fierce, long hug. Biology turned out to mean nothing compared to real love. Lily brings her beautiful artwork when she visits, along with her bright laughter and caring heart. She and I still sit and read books together sometimes, though now they are deeper stories about life, and we talk late into the evenings about everything. Sarah and I have developed a new and genuine understanding over the years. We often sit together on the front porch in the late afternoons with cups of tea, talking about ordinary things like the weather or new recipes, and sometimes about deeper memories, including the painful past. "I was so lost and confused back then," she says quietly sometimes. "Thank you for your patience and quiet strength." I just smile and reply, "We all found our way through it together in the end." Michael and I also talk much more openly now. No more heavy, unspoken silences between us. He teases me gently about adding too much sugar to my baking, and he gives me warm hugs often, just because. Through all those long years of pain and growth, I learned some of the hardest but most important lessons of my life. Keeping a secret because you think it will protect the people you love can feel like the kind and strong thing to do at the time, but over years it can slowly become a kind of prison. It kept me alone with deep pain much longer than necessary. Speaking the truth, gently, carefully, and at the right time, can cause hurt and tears, but those wounds can heal much cleaner than hidden pain that grows in the dark. I paid a very high price for my many years of silence, countless lonely nights staring at the ceiling, an aching heart that no one saw, feeling gradually like a quiet guest in the family I loved so much. But in the end, that difficult price led us all to greater honesty, true forgiveness, and much closer bonds than we had before. If you are carrying a heavy secret today, thinking that staying quiet is the best way to protect the people you love most, please pause and think carefully. Consider finding the courage to share it with someone you trust or seek gentle help. Forgive yourself for past mistakes and forgive others when you can. Hold tightly to hope because it is real. Families can bend a great deal in strong storms. They may even crack or break for a difficult season, but with truth told kindly, love tended every day like a garden, and time to heal, they can grow whole again, often stronger than before, with roots that go deeper into the ground. These days, in the quiet evenings, you'll find me sitting on the front porch watching beautiful sunsets paint the sky in soft pinks and golds. The grandchildren come and go, their laughter ringing through the house again. My heart feels truly light at last. The heavy stone I carried alone for 15 long years is completely gone now, dissolved away in tears, time, and the healing power of love. Life goes on in its gentle way, always offering second chances and new beginnings if we are willing to open our hands and hearts to them. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for listening to my story all the way through. I hope sharing it brings a little comfort if you are facing your own silent burdens or difficult family times. May peace find you, today and always.